Hello, good morning, everyone. This is the WiAA Project. My name is Amy. Today, joining me will be Alex Colindres. She is the Chief Operating Officer of Aruba Registry. So we're very honored to have her join us today for this interview. So, Alex, please tell us your journey and how did you get into the business of aviation?
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. Okay, so how I got into business aviation, I always like to kind of joke and say I was like born into the business. So some of you guys might know that this is a family business, and my father, who's the chairman now of ARG, which is the mother company of both the Aruba Registry and San Marino Registry, started the Aruba Registry in 1995 when I was 7. So I would spend a lot of my summers at the office, kind of just, filing paperwork, answering the phones, doing AIM on the computer, stuff like that. So I spent a lot of time at the office. Of course, as I got older, you don't want to have anything to do with your family or your family business. So I actually went in the complete opposite direction and I actually studied art. So my background is in art history and art management.
Wow.
And for a while, I actually managed an art gallery and I used to sell artwork. So nothing to do with aviation.
So, how did
Um,
that happen, the transition?
So when my dad started the San Marino registry for the longest time it was like my dad and my brother and that was their thing and I was doing my thing. And when he started San Marino, they realized that David would need to leave. And it
Mm-hmm.
kind of happened around the same time that I was planning to move to California because Miami is kind of a small pool for the art industry. So I wanted to kind of branch out, move to LA, and kind of explore more options in the art world. And my dad was like, why don't you work with me part time while David is gone and kind of do marketing? Because part of what I studied in school was kind of marketing and PR. So I was like, okay, fine, I'll do like marketing stuff for you. And he's like, yeah, you can save up money for your move to California. So long story short, basically that part-time job turned into 8 years working at the company and
I
still
guess you
saving
actually
money to
moved.
move. I think he convinced me with all like the fancy trips and stuff. So yeah, and once you start to kind of be there and you get a better understanding of the industry, you do kind of fall in love. There's something a little bit magical about the aviation industry that you don't understand it until you're kind of a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
um for the longest time I would just be like, oh, I have no idea what my dad does, like I don't know. um and then once I started to kind of get a better understanding and kind of meet the people, it is like a really small kind of group. And
Mm-hmm.
you do become friends really easily with everybody, and everyone's so, for the most part, at least in my experience, everyone's been very open and welcoming. So it just kind of felt like a really good fit. um, but yeah, so that's kind of how all that ended up.
So I guess you're pretty much sort of, prepared and born into the role, and that's great. So like, I have one question for you because like, in terms of the world of aviation, like generally, like, can you like maybe explain to me more and maybe the general public who's interested, because I wasn't really sure what the registry of like Aruba is. Maybe you can explain to us more like what it is and tell us what you do, generally with this.
Of course,
Because what I
yeah,
know
I
is
think
like, female pilots and, flight attendants and those kind of things, this, in that area of aviation. So yeah, would love your.
yeah, I think the registry is a little bit elusive to people, even people in the aviation industry. They don't really understand what it is that we do. So the way
Mm-hmm,
that I explain it is that we're a glorified DMV. A DMV is a place that you go to here in the US. I don't know what they call it abroad, where you go and register your car to get a license plate. So that's what we say. We do that for the plane, obviously at a much larger scale, but it's
right.
basically you're flying under the flag of Aruba. So your plane is registered under Aruba, much like what you would do with a boat as well. And so you kind of operate under our rules and regulations. What I think makes us different from other aircraft registries because every country is entitled to a registry. So for the US, you have the FAA, for Europe, you have EASA.
Mhm.
What I think makes us a little bit special and kind of what makes us unique in the industry is that we very much focus on kind of customer service,
Mhm.
and the bureaucracy that you would get with more traditional jurisdictions kind of gets eliminated because that's where we kind of fill in the role of kind of being a bespoke registry where we facilitate the owner and the operator's needs so that there's no downtime with the aircraft kind of being on the ground while the paperwork is trying to get figured out. So I think that's where we distinguish ourselves from other registries. And what
So,
I do specifically at the
yeah.
registry is I kind of manage the day-to-day staff.
Mhm.
And then also at this point, I do a lot of customer relationship, a lot of customer building.
Mhm.
I manage a lot of the more complex projects at the office. So I spend a lot of time on the phone, kind of talking to clients, walking them through the processes, and just also making sure, like I was mentioning before, a big part of our job is customer service. So making sure that everybody in the office understands that and understands that like our priorities to kind of facilitate the client and know when and where to do that. And I also would say that one of my most important jobs at the office is kind of being the liaison with our counterparts in Aruba, which is the DCA of Aruba, which is the government department entity that we work with. So kind of being the in between them, our office, and the client. So that's my main focus.
So basically, there's actually a lot of benefits to registering your like let's say if I had an aircraft, there was actually a lot of benefits to register with Aruba.
That's what we would want you to believe, of course. Yeah. So we feel that like you can get a much greater benefit by registering with us versus by registering with more traditional registries. So like one example that we always like to say is it's time versus money. So of course everybody knows that the FAA registry is one of the inexpensive registries. So you pay $5 to register your aircraft in the US, which is insane, and no one can really compete with that in terms of price.
Mm-hmm.
But with that said, you also can spend 4 months to almost a year waiting for a specific airspace approval, which severely limits you from flying into different jurisdictions.
Mm-hmm.
Versus with Aruba, you are able to register your aircraft within 1 to 2 days, and you automatically get all the airspace approvals that you asked for during the registration.
So that is
So
really efficient.
yeah, that's what we strive for. So for the most part, we can register your plane within 48 hours, assuming that everything's kind of in place. But that's kind of the goal that we go for, and that's why we always think like, what is more valuable to you? So is it like your time and getting to places where you need to go, or is it the money that you're spending? And it depends. So not every operator is gonna. We're not going to be the right fit for every client, but for our clients we're definitely what they're looking for, because we tend to kind of attract like ultra vip clients, which obviously they don't understand the idea of like, no, you can't operate to a certain place because you don't have the specific airspace approval. So that's kind
Mm,
of our target clientele.
I see. Cool. So, Alex, I see that actually you're really young and of course, you're accomplished. So, like, have you faced any, some difficulties, challenges in the aviation industry because of your age and gender, for example?
Yeah, I will definitely say that yes, I face a lot of difficulties, especially at the beginning. I think now things have eased up, but definitely at the beginning there was times where clients were just like not interested in talking to me or would not even acknowledge me. There were times on phone calls where I'd be speaking and they would just be thanking my colleague that was male that hadn't said one word. So there was definitely a lot of sexism and biased, but I tend to be a very headstrong person and tend to not stay quiet when things like that happen. So I do tend to make myself known a little bit more. And I will say that in my case, it's been a little bit, I wouldn't say easier, but at least I've had a lot more of a support because it is a family business. So
Mhm.
at times people will give me a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because I am Jorge's daughter or I am David's sister. So it kind of helps a little, but there is times where clients would just not talk to me, and then all of a sudden they only want to speak with me. Like 4 or 5 years down the line, they realize like, oh, okay, so actually she does know what she's
Yeah,
doing.
basically, they know that finally you're the person in charge. You're the woman in charge to talk to. So
Exactly. It's
it does
funny
take some.
now. They'll make fun of me if I'm like, oh, I'm gonna talk to my dad. They're like, oh, you still talk to him? So clients make fun if I even like mention him.
Oh,
But
that's cool.
yeah,
Yeah,
I think it does happen. I think that it would I'd be lying if I said that there wasn't sexism or ageism in aviation, but um it's not something that should hinder you. I think you should just kind of keep going and just proving yourself. At the end of the day, what I've experienced is that if you have a very good product and a product that you believe in and
yeah,
you know what you're talking about, I think let the product speak for itself.
yeah.
So once you kind of can break that initial barrier and you can
Hmm.
show them that you do know what you're talking about, and that you're not just like a pretty face or a young girl, I think that that really helps not only in building relationships but in building kind of friends in the industry as well.
That's true. That's true. So I guess that's something probably what you would say to maybe someone who's actually younger than us and is watching this video. To whatever that they want to do to pursue their dreams. Um, because I mean, you're chief operating officer. You can be seen as a young role model to many young females. Um, because I guess for a lot of young people, um, I guess they probably don't really know a lot of things, and they in terms of aviation, especially now. Um, what would you say to the younger generation?
So I think a big misconception that people have a lot of times is that they think that like males are the only ones in business or males are the only ones that can be entrepreneurs or things like that. And it's not because women are less creative or less capable or less innovative. It really has to do with, I think, the fact that men tend to be overly confident or more confident at times than women.
Mm-hmm.
And so something that I would always tell myself and I constantly tell my team is that like you have to believe in yourself because if you don't believe in yourself, why should anybody else believe in you? So anytime I ever felt like I couldn't do this or this is too much for me or was too overwhelming, I would just kind of like take a second and just really think like I can do this. I know I can do this. Like just kind of keep pushing forward. And that's kind of what I feel that if I had the opportunity to speak to younger generation, I'd be like, just believe in yourself. Like really like be overly confident and like believe that you can do it. And sometimes you're gonna fall flat on your face because trust me, I have. But then sometimes it's creates the most amazing wins and you're so glad that you kind of took that chance and that you decided to kind of like go for it and reach your goal. So I can only stress that you have to really be like your biggest cheerleader for yourself and like pat yourself on the back whenever you do something well because it's hard for anyone and it's even harder for women because you're going to be judged twice as much, you're going to be scrutinized twice as much. So anytime you do something good, like recognize it and like believe in it and then like have that fuel you for the future to push yourself forward.
Yeah, I that's totally agreeable. Recently, I think sometime last year, you recently wrote an article on LinkedIn with regards to being able to pivot into transporting PPEs, especially in this COVID situation. So, like, maybe you can share with us some ideas in aviation, or maybe women who want to be in aviation. Um, any ideas for future women to like pivot themselves in these COVID-19 times?
So I think there's a really good opportunity, not even just during COVID, but just in
Mhm.
general, for women to kind of branch out into aviation, especially for young pilots, because as we know, there's been a pilot shortage. So I think there's a good opportunity for women to kind of capitalize on that
Mhm.
and and try to kind of grow into that field that like is a much needed need basically. And something that I'm always reminded about, like, I used to, when I first started off at the office, I worked a lot with our designated inspectors. So they're the guys that kind of go out and check out the aircrafts whenever the renewal of the airworthiness certificate is due. And I was lucky enough to be in the UK when they were doing a recurrent training, and the lead inspector invited me to go out with him to kind of check out one of the aircrafts. And he was
Mm-hmm.
just showing me how he runs through the checklist and everything. And then he just told me, he was like, you know, something that I always thought, and it's a shame that there's not more women pilots. He's like, I always believed that women would make better pilots because flying an aircraft is not about like the strength. It's more
Mm-hmm.
about kind of precision and light handling of controls. It's like, so I've never understood why there wasn't more female pilots. It just seemed like a better fit for women. And that's always kind of stuck with me. And I really do think that I agree with him. Like, why aren't more women pilots? Like, it I don't know,
Wow,
you're
that's
a pilot.
really,
So how
that's
about you?
really interesting for him to
What
say
inspired
that.
you?
Yeah,
What inspired you to become a pilot?
yeah. I don't know, cause like um, you know, in my 5 years in aviation, I come across two kinds of men generally who are also in aviation. You've got people who are really supportive, and for example, for the gentleman that you're talking about, and we've got the other kind of type of men that they have this mindset that because women can't drive for some reason, women can't run as well. I don't know, it's strange. But I guess it's just maybe the mindset, and that's kind of like the purpose as to why we're doing these interviews, is to be able to show to the general public that, hey, we've got, women are capable, and they're also able to be in any area of aviation, pilots and whatnot. So, cool. Thank you so much. And do you have any words, towards the WiAA Project initiative? Because also considering that the WiAA Project was established during this time of, the pandemic. Hopefully, we're almost at the end of it.
Hopefully, fingers crossed. Yeah, I think it's a really great thing that you guys are doing. Like, I'm so lucky and honored to be a part of it, and I'm glad that this actually came to fruition. I think there should be more kind of community involvement where with women in aviation. I always used to joke with Severine from Comlux. I don't know if you know her. If not, I'm happy to introduce you to her whenever you have a chance because I think she'd be
Cool.
perfect. So I always used to joke with her that we were like a part of a special club in aviation, and we used to call it Chicas of Aviation, like the CIA.
Just
But I'm glad that someone actually acted on it and made it not just a thing that we would talk about and really developed it into kind of a great initiative that can grow and kind of support women. So I think one of my biggest support group while kind of developing in aviation has been women, like women kind of taking the time to talk to me or give me advice or listen to me when I needed someone to listen, or just having a friend that kind of understood what it was to be. I'm not a mom, but at least what it was to be kind of like a wife or a girlfriend who was constantly away, and just having someone that understood that lifestyle that was a woman was really nice, and that understood also like how to deal with the dynamics of the men that you are talking about that have these specific mindsets. So I think it's great that there's a platform that allows us to have these conversations. And what I would say in regards to COVID is that I think COVID unfortunately has alienated us and kind of distanced us from a lot of the events where we would get together. So if there was maybe like some type of platform that allowed us to continue the conversations that we were having, um, I think that would be a good opportunity for women to just kind of keep having this conversation and kind of growing it.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's true. So, just any final thoughts to, the women in the audience of the Women's in Aviation Asian Project?
Yeah, I think my final thought would be, I think we need to keep having this conversation. Like,
Yeah.
as much as I believe sexism in aviation is going away and things are changing, because you definitely see it with the younger generation that things are changing.
Mhm.
But it's a conversation that still needs to be had. And for no matter how we feel that we might be beating a dead horse, like it's still something that needs to continue to be discussed, because the more we talk about it, the more that it becomes evident to more people, and you kind of pave the way to help the younger generation. So like, let's not brush it under the rug, because sometimes it's an uncomfortable conversation to have.
True, true. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, Alex, for your time.
Thank you so
You
much for
know,
having
telling
me.
me more. Anyway, thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I hope you enjoyed this interview. If you have any more questions, or if there's anyone that you would love us to um, interview, do let us know. We'll be so happy to interview them. And if you have any comments, questions, likes, do give us a thumbs up if you like this video. And if you want to know more, do subscribe to us. And thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you till next episode.